Thank you guys so much for being here. I am Carlie Kotyza-Whitthuhn, and I'm running to be your next state representative in 48B. I'm so grateful that you guys are here tonight because it is such a refreshing opportunity for me to be able to be in a small, intimate atmosphere like this and really be able to have conversations with people one-on-one.
Carlie Kotyza-Whitthuhn and incumbent Laurie Pryor want your voice to really count in the Minnesota House of Representatives.
What are you learning from the people that you're talking to?
There's some anxiety out there.
Why is that?
I think it's the anxiety over...
It filters down from Washington?
Yes, it's kind of the political climate right now.
This is Democratic Visions. Here's Tim O'Brien.
We are very pleased to welcome back Laurie Pryor. Laurie represents parts of Eden Prairie and Minnetonka, which is House Seat 48A. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So you've been through the grind before. You campaigned 2 years ago and you won. What brings you back to the process? Because it's an excruciating process, isn't it, Laurie?
It is. I'm back at it, I guess, because I know that there's work that needs to get done. We had some good legislation that was proposed in these last 2 years, but we didn't get a chance to vote on it. And it's legislation that has broad public support.
Now, can I interrupt there? Because the reason that you didn't get a chance to vote on it is because the Republicans, as a matter of strategy, folded that into a 900-plus bill, 900-page bill.
And they came to the floor at 12:30 at night. So I can't say Saturday night. It was Sunday morning at 12:30 a.m.
I'm trying to envision what a 900-page bill looks like. Is it about that thick?
That's about that thick.
Did they actually print a copy for everyone?
Well, they didn't print copies for everybody, but anybody that wanted one could get a copy of it.
Did you get a copy?
I got one I shared with somebody else, though, because I figured we don't need that stack of paper.
And so this is not what we elect people to do. And the purpose of this
and we can read them online too, but it's like that's part of it. Nobody had time to read it.
Well, does anyone, and I mean anyone who's seated in the legislature, pretend to have read it before it's voted upon?
The only people that really had read it was the conference committee that created it.
They read their sections of it, don't you
think? Yeah, they read their sections of it, and then they kept putting it together and putting it together. And so everybody's doing their own chapter. But you're right, I don't know if I guess some of the nonpartisan staff must have read all of it together. But it was introduced, the session, we can't take any action after midnight on Sunday. And the bill came forward, it was introduced on the floor at 12:30 at night, less than 12 hours before we were supposed to adjourn. And we only had gotten access to it 3 hours before that. And so, even if I just speed reading it, you don't have enough time to get through it. So it was basically done without any input. It was just a take it or leave it. Who even knows what's in this bill? And so then when it was vetoed, that was not a shock.
I want to take a step back and take a little bit bigger picture look. Right now, the Republicans are in control of the legislature. The House is up for election. 11 seats turnover puts the Democrats in control of the legislature. That's vitally important because now, if the Democrats do that, they can bring up these particular bills for up or down vote. We don't, if they pass, great. If they don't pass, at least people have had an opportunity to vote.
To take a vote. And people will know where their representative stands if we can take a vote.
I almost fell off my chair when I was reading that the Speaker of the House, the Republican, was quoted as saying he's not going to put any gun measure before the body that has not been approved by the NRA. Now, that is almost incomprehensible to me. Was that something that came as a surprise to you, or were you aware of that?
It wasn't a surprise, really, because certainly when you're in that environment, you understand how much of it is election year politics. And, there's sometimes a majority party forgets that they're also there to govern and that they're there to answer to the will of the people. And I think that was about just looking forward to the next campaign and not really thinking about what it is that people thought was important and what people want to see brought forward and voted on.
I note that the focus of your campaign is on safe and healthy communities going forward. But tell me more specifically what that means. Is gun violence something that fits into that category?
It does.
And tell me what the problem is and what you see as solutions.
Right. So I'll start with the gun violence.
Yes, please.
Because there is some common sense legislation that we can pass. It's been passed in other states, and it's made a difference. It saves lives. So one of them is closing the loopholes on background checks, the gun show loophole, they say, because right now someone that is forbidden from getting a gun can go to a gun show, can go to a private seller, and still purchase a gun.
Out of a trunk.
Yeah, in the parking lot. So you can just,
Wow.
So that person that sold the gun isn't breaking any laws by not checking a background
Because it's not
check.
required.
Right. So the person buying it is breaking a law. The person that's selling it is not breaking a law.
I
And can
understand,
just
I
let
understand
it go.
that 90% of Minnesotans want that
Yeah.
passed,
Yeah.
and yet it never came for a vote.
And it never came for a vote.
Unbelievable.
And the other piece of legislation that we talked about that other states have passed is the red flag law, they call it. And it's just when someone is an imminent threat to themselves or others, that someone in that household or a proper authority can go to the courts and order the guns to be taken away. And we know that there are situations where there have been mass shootings and people knew ahead of time that that person was an imminent threat.
There's no vehicle, present vehicle for that, huh?
Yeah, there's just, there's some recourse for domestic abusers, and the red flag puts a due process in place, and it can make a difference for some of those very dangerous situations when there are guns in the home. I know that there's a lot of really great common sense gun owners out there that are also supporting these measures.
Well, it's an issue that has to be addressed, and it appears to me that it's an incumbent upon the Democrats to resume control of the legislature and pass those measures.
Yep.
So tell me about another issue that is important to you in your focus on safe and healthy communities.
Right. Well, another issue, and again, we could have taken a vote on it. I think we would have passed it, but it's to do something about distracted driving.
Well, right now you can't text and drive, right?
Right. You can't text and drive, but you can do the same thing, pick up a cell phone, look down at your cell phone, be touching your cell phone with one or two hands sometimes. People are doing it, and that's not against the law, to make phone calls with your cell phone. And what this would say is that just like texting, you can't text during driving, you can't be holding a cell phone and making a call when you're driving. So
What
it's
does that
called
mean?
hands-free.
So there's been a fair amount of publicity, unfortunately realistic but negative, about the type of care that our seniors and vulnerable adults are getting in healthcare facilities. Do you have any ideas along those lines as to how that could be addressed and improved?
Right. So just like you said earlier about that big nearly 1,000-page bill, there were some provisions that would have addressed protecting the issues that we need to protect our seniors in care facilities. But I think we also needed to go beyond what was in that bill and just make sure that we do have the protection in place, that we do have the licensing in place and the inspections in place, where we can make sure that every facility where vulnerable adults and seniors are living, that they are really qualified to provide the care that they are.
Are there facilities that are not licensed that are operating at this present time?
Well, there's this new field where you have assisted living. It's not a nursing home, but these other kind of living arrangements that seniors are moving into. It hasn't been around for as long, so it hasn't had the scrutiny that right now our nursing facilities would.
Okay. And I want to now turn, Laurie, if I could, to what I consider to be the fourth cornerstone of your plan to keep our communities healthy and safe, and that is the opioid epidemic. And I understand from statistics, I guess these might be the latest statistics, that approaching 400 Minnesotans died in 2016 from opioid overdoses.
Right.
What can we do about that?
Well, there's we start with the idea of preventing the addictions in the beginning, and we know that there's been this history of drug companies promoting their drugs and saying they're not habit forming, they're not addicting.
Well, we can sue the heck out of them.
Yeah. Well, and that's I think that's some states are working on that. But what we need to do is we need to bring these pharmaceutical companies, we need to bring them to the table and
How about bring them to task?
Bring them to task, because it was their marketing and their promotion of these drugs that started the epidemic, and so they need to be part of the solution. And so whether it's the penny of the pill or increasing the licensing fees for selling these opioid drugs in Minnesota, this is one way to get these pharmaceutical companies to be part of the solution. And with that, the increased fees or the penny the pill, then we can work on prevention, we can work on education, and we can work on treatment. And doing that, we can bring an end to this epidemic.
Well, Governor Dayton was promoting the penny a pill approach, was he not? And tell me, what was the gist of that legislation or proposed legislation?
Right. So it would be just, it's
the pharmaceutical
catching
company
it.
would
Yep.
have to
Right.
pay a penny for every pill that they dispense into the system?
Right. And so that was the beginning of it. We had great bipartisan support when that bill was introduced, and it was two parents that had lost a child.
Don't tell me this got wrapped up in the 990-page mess.
It didn't make it that far.
Oh,
so
yeah, you remind me.
Yeah.
The pharmaceutical lobbyists rose up and managed to quash
Right.
the penny a pill for sure.
So we had the great bipartisan support. We had people that were serving in the legislature that have already lost children to this epidemic. And the Senate was actually able to pass a version of the bill, and they were the ones that introduced the idea of having more of a licensing fee that pharmaceutical companies would be paying. So I'm thinking, okay, all right, it's something there too. But in the House, we didn't hear the legislation. It never advanced to the body to take a vote.
Now, Laurie, I know that Eden Prairie and Minnetonka couldn't have a stronger proponent of education than you.
Mm-hmm.
What would you like to see the legislature accomplish in the education area in the upcoming session?
Mm-hmm. A lot of education just is basically making sure that there's a stable source of funding, and then you can give local control to your local school districts. Both Minnetonka and Eden Prairie.
Does that mean that
Yeah.
the state can't borrow from the school districts again, that they did
No,
as they did in the Plenty administration?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. I think we can start by doing no harm. We can keep our word, which is to support education in Minnesota. It's in our Constitution, and that's what we have to do. We have to be there, the reliable and adequate, fully fund our schools. And I represent the Hopkins School District, the Minnetonka School District, and the Eden Prairie School District. They all have great school boards. They spend the money wisely. The state needs to do its share.
So now we get to the mother of all mothers, Southwest Light Rail. The powers that be have negotiated an agreement with the adjacent freight line and where the tracks run parallel for a certain period of time. That might get going yet this year. Is that a good thing for Eden Prairie?
Oh, it's a great thing for Eden Prairie. I know that the city of Eden Prairie, the people of Eden Prairie are excited for it and are still optimistic about how quickly, how quickly we can get started on it. I think it's about 4 years.
Wow, that's a long time,
Yeah,
but it's a major project.
It's major, yep. We've been told repeatedly by many different experts in the transportation field, we cannot build enough lanes to get out of gridlock. We have to be able to use multimodal. We need the roads, but we also need other forms of transportation. We need mass transit.
Well, you've done a heck of a job in your capacity as representing 48A, but I know you are still out there going door to door to door. What are you learning from the people that you're talking to?
There's some anxiety out there.
Why is that?
I think it's the anxiety over...
It filters down from Washington?
Yes, it's kind of the political climate right now. And so I think that's one good thing why I'm glad that I'm out, because at least of all the people that are representing them, here's somebody that they can talk to and talk to face to face.
I want to thank you for your upcoming election, but we also got to get those 11 other seats in place. So I'd like to see you sitting in the majority come election day in November. Thanks for stopping by.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Tim.
Right. And so we need leadership that I would argue.
Loren Niemi and Howard Lieberman are professional storytellers. They team up from time to time.
All right, I will grudgingly give you that. The question that comes up for me is, will we have anything left of American democracy by the time Donald Trump is done?
I don't know. I mean, do we have much left today?
That's it. Yes. Well, with a complicit Republican Party, I have serious questions.
I mean, who on our side has got the flag, so to speak, the metaphorical flag, and is running with the flag and saying, this is what we're going to do, this is what we need to do, and this is how we're going to get there. Is there anybody that you see?
In the southwest suburbs, Democrats Laurie Pryor, Carlie Kotyza-Whitthuhn, Steve Elkins, and Heather Adelson are running forward with that flag. If elected, they'll be on your side. And so too is Dean Phillips in Congressional District 3. And Tim Walz. We need Tim elected governor, and Dean to give our suburban communities a voice in Congress. Now don't forget, Laurie, Carlie, Steve, and Heather for the Minnesota House, for Minnetonka, Eden Prairie, Edina, and Bloomington, and Dean and Tim for Minnesota and the nation.
Your vote is needed to repair and rebuild the state of Minnesota and the nation. Please vote Democrat in November. Carlie, are you concerned at all that when you show up in St. Paul after you've won the election this fall, that you're going to find yourself as one of the youngest people in the legislature?
I'm not concerned by that.
Is that a good thing?
It would be. I mean, in my opinion.
Carlie Kotyza-Whitthuhn. She's the endorsed candidate, House Seat 48B, which is southern Eden Prairie. Carlie's campaign is off to a rocket start. She's been endorsed by Women Winning, Emily's List, AFL-CIO, Planned Parenthood, AFSCME. And you know what? You happen to be running in a district that, by all accounts, is leaning Democrat. As I understand it, Hillary Clinton won that district by some 13 points. So you've got a real chance out there, don't you?
Absolutely. No more waffling on the important things. No more giving our politicians extra credit for just doing the right thing.
What motivates a person like you to say, you know what, I'm going to take on an incumbent and I'm going to win a seat in the legislature? Why did you decide to run, Carlie?
Well, this year, everything feels a little bit different. With what we've got going on out in Washington, D.C., we're seeing involvement like never before. I think that people are fired up, they are ready for true change. And like you said, a lot of my neighbors in Eden Prairie consider themselves to be independent-minded thinkers. People don't tend to vote one-sided ticket or the other. They'll vote for a Democratic presidential
they might be ticket
candidate.
Splitters.
Absolutely. I'm feeling like this year, Eden Prairie is ready for change. Our current representative has been in office for 10 years, and over the last decade, the community's evolved a lot. So I think people are ready for new type of leadership in Eden Prairie and at the Capitol.
It's not an easy task to run for the legislature. You're going to be door knocking virtually every door in that district. There must be more than just change that you want to accomplish that gets you into the race. So tell me a little bit more as to why you have jumped into this race.
This was a process that started right after the 2016 election. My husband was a little bit frustrated that our congressman had been reelected, and he made an offhand comment about me someday running against him for Congress. And I had never thought about running for political office
before. You'll be too late because the Democrats are going to beat him.
Exactly. And I'm hugely excited for Dean Phillips out in our CD3.
Absolutely.
So, yes, but so he had made an offhand comment about that, and I think I laughed out loud because I had never really thought about running for political office. And 2018, we're seeing such a huge wave of extremely qualified and energetic women running for office all across the country. As a woman, I feel that it's time for gender parity in our government. It's time for equal pay for equal work.
So your husband's offhand remark has turned his life and your life upside down.
Yes.
For the better.
Absolutely. And I remind him that this is all his fault. He's been very, very supportive.
So now it's the day after Election Day. The session's not open yet, but let's assume that the Democrats resume control of the House. So that's going to give you a better choice of committees. What would you like to do over there?
You know, I'm a huge supporter of public education. I have a little bit of background actually working in the schools. I grew up in northeastern Wisconsin, actually in a strong union household. Both my parents were educators. And I went back there for 1 year after I graduated from the University of St. Thomas with my degree in entrepreneurship and Spanish. And I worked as an ELL aide and migrant recruiter in a small school district just south of Sheboygan, where I grew up. I had students in pre-K all the way up to grade 11. Serving and working alongside them in the classrooms allowed me to take from that experience how important and formative those years are for our children. As a millennial, I'm concerned that the policies being enacted today or dismantled today are taking us backward instead of focusing on our future. We need to be invested.
Well, I've been on your website, and I know that you make reference to expanding pre-K education throughout Eden Prairie. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yes, absolutely. So Eden Prairie is one of the school districts actually on the waiting list for the Universal Pre-K program. And if we're able to expand the funding and to make it permanent, to allow parents to send their children to pre-K in order to prepare them for kindergarten, I really think that that will be a huge step in moving toward eliminating the achievement gap here in Minnesota.
So that's one of the things that would separate the Republican platform from the Democratic platform. The Democratic platform would promote and foster expansion of pre-K throughout the state.
Yes.
We've talked about the pre-K. Tell me about K-12 education now. Is there something in mind that you think you'd like to see adopted by the state of Minnesota?
Well, as we go forward, I think it just is so important that we continue Minnesota's long history of supporting our public schools and making
Again,
sure.
that's a constitutional mandate.
Yep,
the
absolutely.
state has to support those public schools.
So it's a duty of our legislature. Making sure that we're keeping responsible class sizes, making sure that our teachers are being compensated accordingly, making sure that we have the highest quality educators in our classrooms. I think that we can take a second look at some of our technical training opportunities. We can take a look at what the opportunities are at the high school level so that we can prepare all of our students to go on to whatever might come next for them. And then maybe go on to an apprenticeship or something along those lines, or maybe just a 2-year program in order to get their associate's degree.
Well, I would think that the voters in Eden Prairie, 48B, would be very receptive to that message, because the school system in Eden Prairie is the crown jewel of the city, no doubt about that.
Absolutely, we're very proud of our school district.
I want to shift subject a little bit now. What programs would you like to see the state of Minnesota adopt relative to curbing gun violence?
At the core, we all want to prevent gun violence, and I think that some of the ways that we've talked about doing that, you could tweak the vocabulary, and it really tends to get people riled up. But when you have a conversation, we all want to make sure that our kids are safe in school and that our neighbors are safe living their day-to-day lives. One of the things that I think we can get done here in Minnesota right away, should have actually probably passed last session, would be universal background checks. And what that means, because there are a lot of people who say, like, oh yeah, every time I buy a weapon, I do have to go through a background check. There's a couple loopholes.
Big loopholes.
Big glaring loopholes, I guess. You certainly could say that. If you buy through a store or a public seller, you certainly have to do the background check, the federal background check. And but if you buy through a private seller, they're not legally required.
Like out of a trunk.
Exactly. There are people who sell over the internet to people that they do not know and don't always take that precaution to run a background screen. Secondarily, if you buy through a store, I believe that there's a 72-hour waiting period. And if so something happens in the computer system, or there's any type of issue that delays it beyond those 72 hours, the store is able to sell it. And also the auction sale.
Gun shows, that sort of thing.
Yes.
So I know that the Republican leadership in the House of Representatives has taken the position that they're not going to push forward any bill that's not approved by the NRA. What a nonsensical way to run a government. Do you expect to get any support from the NRA going forward yourself?
I do not. My husband is a safe and responsible gun owner, and I am a huge supporter of our Second Amendment. I want to make sure that safe and responsible gun owners have access to weapons for sport, especially here in Minnesota. 90% of Minnesotans support universal background checks. We can get that done together. Moving forward with legislation that makes us all safer is not stepping on the toes of somebody's rights, as long as they are going to prove that they're responsible and that they are going to handle their weapons with care.
I understand that one of the measures that came before the legislature was a so-called red flag provision, which would block a purchase of a firearm by those who are a danger to themselves or members of society, again opposed by the Republican majority, of which your opponent is certainly a part. What's your position on that kind of red flag legislation?
I think that legislation is only going to save people. If there is somebody who is in a situation where they have threatened to take their own life or to take action to take somebody else's life, I think that that's absolutely something that we should move to stop.
And you don't mind if I switch to another topic now, because I'm just going to run through topics that
absolutely.
occur to me, if
Yeah.
that's okay with you. Justice Denied, a big first part of a series in the Star and Tribune showing how victims of sexual violence have been ignored, minimized, and treated very callously with ineffective investigations. I know you've got a broader interest in overall equity issues, but do you have any position relative to what's been disclosed so far by the Star and Tribune?
It's certainly disheartening to hear. I think that our survivors of sexual assault and sexual harassment need to feel that they are being supported and that everything is being done to bring the perpetrators to justice. We need to take a full look at everything that is going to be coming out through this series and make sure that we are listening to our survivors and making sure that we're taking action.
And again, another switch. Over to Southwest Light Rail. I've been told that Eden Prairie residents are wholeheartedly in favor of Southwest Light Rail. Are you?
I am. I am excited about the opportunity to be able to commute to downtown Minneapolis. I've heard a lot of people at the doors saying, I hate the idea of driving down and finding parking, and especially in the winter and all this sort of stuff. There are a lot of people in Eden Prairie that work downtown. There are a lot of people who live downtown and work out in Eden Prairie.
Or might work out in Eden Prairie.
Exactly. And so one of the things that we're hearing from our local business leaders is that they are supportive of the Southwest Light Rail project because they have jobs available, and it's getting harder and harder with the traffic issues to get out there. The bus system that we have is fantastic.
I know that.
But making sure that there is a consistent option for people to commute back and forth for work.
Carlie, here's my final question. It's actually a two-part question. So you're going door to door to door to door to door, and you're seeing probably parts of Eden Prairie you've never seen before. What do you like about Eden Prairie? What do you love about Eden Prairie? And then the second part of the question is, what are people telling you when you're going door to door?
That's a really great question. I've been in Eden Prairie for 7 years. My husband and I bought our home in 2011. We love all the green space. We were definitely attracted by the school district. Truly, the neighbors that we have, and we've really built these community relationships. I think that that's something that is lacking in our digital-focused society these days, that people don't always have the opportunity to get to know their neighbors. And it's something that I hear a lot about Eden Prairie. Like people, a lot of the people that I've talked to, they're like, oh, how long have we been here? Oh, 20, 25 years, I mean, like beyond 40 years. And I think that that's so exciting. Those people have truly seen our community grow and evolve. As I'm knocking the doors, it just is.
Let me jump ahead a little bit. I bet you what they're telling you when you go door to door, and you correct me if I'm wrong, we want to have somebody that can get along with people at the legislature and get something done.
Yes, I am hearing that. People say like, oh, all of the bickering and the arguing and just like the stagnation, it's certainly being modeled for our home state politicians out in Washington, D.C. That's what we're seeing all the time. The negativity is almost enough to make you want to bury your head in the sand. But I understand why people feel that way. Truly working across the aisle, when you see something that has 90% support from our neighbors across the state of Minnesota, like universal background checks, there's no reason that our politicians can't come together and get that done.
Carlie, I see you as a beacon of hope and opportunity. Good luck. Thank you for coming by.
Thank you so much, Tim. It's great to chat. The road to taking back the Minnesota House runs right through this district. Thank you. We're going to be one of the most watched legislative races in the state this year, and I need your help to win in November. As a businesswoman, I'm concerned about the lack of accountability for our politicians to focus on people instead of profits. We need to be investing in our public schools and technical training programs so that our citizens are able to enter the workforce ready to achieve their dreams. We need to be focusing on the threats against our environment and take them seriously and take action now. We need to be able to offer our neighbors equal access to affordable and quality health care, no matter their age, gender, or pre-existing conditions.
Carlie Kotyza-Whitthuhn.
Wow, I don't know what I was thinking.
Democratic Visions is handcrafted by volunteers from Eden Prairie, Hopkins, Edina, Minnetonka, and Bloomington. Watch us on select cable systems and on our YouTube channel. This is Carol Sundstrom.